Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Give us follows on X at Zander Krause and at JF McMullen. Great opening segment there, Johnny Mac, as we get through these top 25 players that you and Ed Kratz are doing. It's always a good list, and we're down to 21. We'll have the 20 update for you guys tomorrow on the morning in Birds 365. Let's talk a little Antwaun Powell-Ryland, John. This is the
real quick, to wrap that up, Ed had Keeley at number 20 and Adoree at number 22. So a little bit higher than me.
Yeah, so I was going to say he was 21 and you had him at 24. So obviously Ed had him higher to get him up to 21 a little bit. So that's where Ed had him a little bit above Adoree Jackson. That works, Johnny Mac. John, let's get into a little Antwaun Powell-Ryland talk. And it's funny. I didn't think we'd be having this conversation about Antwaun Powell-Ryland. He was the Eagles' sixth round pick. He was the last pick of the draft for the Birds, and they took a lot of players. Number 209 overall out of Virginia Tech. But this is a guy that registered 16 sacks in 2024 and 25.5 over his last two seasons at Virginia Tech. Now, ACC production is not NFL production, but with what's going on at the edge rusher room, there's a chance APR has a chance to make an impact or at least have a window for playing time in Philly. What do you think of this player, John? Just overall, before we get into some of these specifics, I didn't think we'd be having this convo on Antoine, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, he's a breath away, whether it's by injury, whether it's by poor performance from being involved in that edge rotation as a rookie. And when you look at the Eagles draft, and as you mentioned, it was a large class. They had 8 picks on day 3, and other than Ty Robinson, who is kind of the opposite. He's like penciled in as the 4th man, and he's got to hold off, which I think, by the way, is another underreported story. Like, don't sleep on Thomas Booker, who's been here, Byron Young, who's a guy that they claimed on waivers and was a 3rd round pick, 71st overall, another Alabama guy. When they claimed him from Las Vegas, kind of redshirted him last season, and even Gabe Hall. So it's not like if Ty Robinson doesn't have a strong summer, they're just going to roll him out there. So now the other end, and by opposite, I mean Antwaun Powell-Ryland. Well, you're penciled in with Smith, Nolan Smith, who should be healthy by then, Jalix Hunt, and then 2 more TAMU signings, Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche. But if Ojulari or Uche don't impress, or even Jalix Hunt for that matter, Nolan's going to be there. It's just a matter of how good he is. Is he a true number 1? But he's proven that he's a player. Everybody else, it's kind of like, well, there's a negative path you could see, and all of a sudden you might need them. So I think of those 8 picks, other than Ty Robinson, he might be the most likely to play. Drew Kendall, Kyle McCord, Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, that little cluster, and really I'm talking about Kendall, Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, the offensive linemen, they're not playing. Eagles love Kendall. They love Hinton's upside.
There's just no path. There's no path.
Yeah, they're not playing. Mac McWilliams, he's going to be the 5th or 6th corner, depending if they keep Eli Ricks and what happens with Eli Ricks. You're going to have a bunt. We just talked about Adoree Jackson. He can play anywhere. If anybody gets hurt, Adoree's going out there. So it's very unlikely that he gets much playing time. Spawn Munden, same type of thing. Now, he's early in the season. He might be in the conversation because he's a heartbeat away. With Trotter and Zach Bond. But Campbell's going to be there at some point. Jacoby's going to be back, and all of a sudden, Smiles way down on the list. Kyle McCord's obviously going to start as a 3rd-string quarterback. And that leaves Antwaun Powell-Ryland, who's got a chance. Now, he's got to play well in the summer. as you mentioned, his sack production at Virginia Tech, best in the nation over his final 2 years. 16 and 16 and a half or 16 as a senior. 9.5. I think it was 16 and 9.5 the year prior. So, very productive. You can say, well, it's only Virginia Tech, but this guy was a 4-star recruit who went to Florida and then transferred to Tech. So it's not like the SEC was like, we don't want this guy.
Yeah, and also it's better than the alternative. Like people are like, it's Virginia Tech. I'm like, all right, would you rather him have stunk at Virginia Tech? I mean, I know it's not a guarantee he's going to be great in the pros, but it's still good that he did that at VT.
No, so you say yourself, and why did he last as a 6th round? And the answer is, he's kind of small. He's got small arms, and that generally is very difficult for edge rushers, especially when they're playing the Lane Johnsons and Jordan Mailata's of the world. So the projection's a little bit lower than the production you would indicate for most around the NFL. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. I mean, that's why we were talking about Micah yesterday. That's why everybody projected Micah Parsons as an all-ball linebacker originally because of his arm length. Because nobody watching that film, like, oh, that guy can't rush the passer. But he had, and I'm looking at Micah real quick, he had 31.5-inch arm length. Well, Ryland's 31.25. So a little bit lower. But, and I'm not trying to compare him to Micah Parsons, but you get my point. Even at the highest level, even at a 1st-round pick, and Micah's at 12th overall, they're projecting him at a different position because of his arm length. It's just the way this league is. So I think he can overcome that if he's a natural pass rusher. But we have to see. My biggest concern is from a playing style, he's more Bryce Huff than he is Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. Like, he's not going to drop in the flat. He only played outside at Virginia Tech, lining up wide 9.
This is a situation edge rusher.
Yeah. And, Vic didn't use that with Bryce. Now, maybe he likes this kid better. They drafted him with Vic and part of it. So,
yeah. And I think the scenario is different enough where you're not going to get boxed into a corner like you were with Bryce, where, you got an $18 million player. I think there's a lot of different variables there, obviously.
Well, obviously the expectations are different. But I'm just saying they're similar style, undersized defensive ends, like not overhang players. So that stupid 4-3-3-4 conversation. The Eagles call what fans would call 3-4 linebackers overhang players. That's Nolan Smith. That's Jalix Hunt sort of toggles back and forth, but he could be an overhang player. But they generally have that Josh Sweat role, or they have, and Vic might change that. And we're going to see how they play Ojulari and Uche, but they're both undersized, and Ojulari has some experience as an overhang player. He's more of the real defensive end. And I don't know if that's a fit, but we're going to see. They just might need somebody who can go get the pass rusher. And there's a path. I'm not saying it's likely. Ojulari would have to perform poorly, and Uche would have to perform poorly. But it's also not out of the question. And I still say I could see one of those two getting cut if they have a poor summer. More likely Uche than Ojulari because they gave him a little bit more money. But it's not so much to where they can't cut him if he doesn't perform well. And, next up would be Antwaun Powell-Ryland. So he might be he might be a little bit more important than people think. And I certainly think he's going to be here unless he has a really, really poor summer. And at some point, the Eagles might have to go outside the organization, as we talked about.
I think this player could be pretty good, Johnny Mac. I mean, I know I'm obviously being optimistic, and he hasn't done shit in the NFL, but he does have the skill set at least to get after the quarterback. Couple him with a guy like Vic Fangio, who I watched make Oren Burks good last year. How many guys did Vic Fangio get the most out of last year? I feel pretty good as that being a barometer for what he's going to do with these other players that have maybe a lot of potential but need to realize it. I think APR could be a pretty good player on this team. Maybe not this year, but I think he has pretty good upside, APR.
Well, I think there's decent upside. Again, everything's relative for a 6th-round pick. And that's what you're looking for. That's what Howie said. He doesn't want backups. He wants guys who can develop into starters and have starter traits. And with Powell-Ryland, it's about his natural ability. He's got a much bigger pass rushing bag, so to speak, than most rookies. Like most rookies, you have to teach, even higher level rookies. They might have speed, they might have power, but they don't have both. They don't know how to use their hands, their technique, and then they go against tackles who understand how to block, and they're screwed. Jalen Son talked about it. It's like you didn't get within 4 feet of Jalen Hurts at any point when he was out there in practice. And that is helping him, learn. All right. And Lane and Jordan help him. All right, do this, try that. He's a little bit more advanced just from a technique standpoint. Not a little bit, a lot. And sometimes, one thing pass rushers have in common, all of them, whether they have 31-inch arms or 34.5-inch arms, which everybody wants, and that's they're relentless.
Right.
They never stop. And he's got that. But he's got, like I said, other than Ty Robinson, he might have the easiest path to playing time as a rookie, up to day 3 guys.
Everything he does well, Johnny Mac, 9 forced fumbles in college.
Well, and the Eagles like that.
Yes, they love that. The punch out.
So I don't want to get people too excited because I said, traits, he reminds me of Bryce Huff more than, and that's, to your point about Oren Burks and all those. Back 7 is a little different from the front. There's some, those guys, it's just like, all right, play your gap, play your technique, go get the quarterback or stop the run, whatever you're trying to do. There's not a lot of, you got to be instinctual like Nakobe and Oren or Zach Bond. And, in the secondary, there's a lot of communication. There's occasional stunt and things like that, but it's a little bit different up front than it is in the back 7. So with those guys, it's more of, go get the quarterback, and on the way, stop the run.
Right.
That's more Jim's philosophy, but Vic's a little bit more encompassing because you do have to drop as a flat defender. You do have the occasional stunt, but it's not like Oren Burks, where it's not like, rookie defensive backs who've got a lot of communication to deal with and all that shit.
Yeah. I wonder if APR could carve out a role where he's here for, unforeseeable future, at least a contributor through his rookie contract. It's harder for guys. I mean, when I think about 5th and 6th round picks, I think the reason that APR is so interesting to me is because for the guys who come and don't really have a path, a lot of times they fizzle out, like even Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson. Like, and I know it's not a perfect example, but we have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. There's no path for them. None. Now, maybe to be a backup or to be the 4th or the 5th, maybe, but they haven't even seized that. So I don't view them as like, all right, what can they do? With APR, I feel like defensive line.
Yeah, but you haven't seen him yet.
Huh?
You haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you remember
the path is there as you laid out.
Well, I talk about opportunity. That's the reason he's got more of an opportunity than those other guys. Like Kendall, to me, is like that's a rock solid day 3 prospect. He's going to be a starting center in the NFL. I don't know where. It's not going to be here, but he's going to be a starting center in the NFL at some point. But he's blocked here. You know, as you just pointed out. You remember how hyped up people were with, you mentioned Johnny and Anais Smith and Trevor Keegan and Trot last year. I mean, people were talking the starters. Could he start? Could Keegan start? Could Trotter start? Not so much Anais because he was having a bad camp, but before camp started, people were really excited about those players. And now look at them a year later, as you point out. Now, all 6 rounders are blocked, but they're a better pass, as you mentioned. With Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams, well, good luck. You got Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, and Matt Pryor, and Kendall Lamb, which, by the way, that I got to correct that Kendall Lamb thing, but I'll get to that. They got no shot. Now, they'll be here, but I'm talking about this year. They have no shot to play. None. Doesn't mean they can't develop behind the scenes, but it's a hell of a lot easier to develop if you're playing. And APR is blocked because, you know, they want Ojulari to be the 3rd guy. They probably want Uche to be the 4th guy. So they're blocked, but he's not blocked with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata or even Matt Pryor.
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm saying. So there's an easier path and an opportunity. You can never prove yourself unless you have an opportunity.
Yeah. Now we'll see how he develops some of the other skill sets that that he would need to probably stay on the field with Vic Fangio. But I think he's got time for that. I think he brings pretty impressive production, though. Obviously, he's got the technique, and you brought up the effort and the relentlessness of the player, enough to earn him a look as a 3rd down specialist. But we'll see what he can do if he can round out his game a little bit better. With better run defense, smart play on special teams. I don't know. Is he a special teams guy? Probably not, right?
No, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly not at Virginia Tech. He was a star.
Yeah.
So that's half the battle. Like we talk about Terrace Marshall, who had a great spring. Like he was a star at LSU, and he's played, I don't know, 15 special team snaps, some ridiculously low number since coming to the pros because he was a star. He never played. He's not good at it. And how are you if you're a 5th receiver? Like you have to play special teams. So how does he make the team? Like I think people say, oh, well, he's your best option at receiver after AJ and Devontae and Jahan Dotson. So keep him. Well, you got to play special teams. Like I think very few people think about special teams. Like that's what I'm amazed. Mike Kay and I go back and forth because I was all the way back to when Eli Ricks was a rookie. I thought Mekhi Gardner would make the team over Eli Ricks because Mekhi was a good special teams player and Eli wasn't. But they kept Eli because of the preseason interception.
Yeah, right.
And they thought somebody would claim him on waivers. And you never know if they would have. And they wanted to keep him, and they thought they could get Gardner through waivers, and they did. So ultimately, Howie was right. He was able to keep them both. And he's kept him for 2 years, and he doesn't play special teams. And it's like he's dead weight at the bottom of the roster.
Didn't something happen like this last year where they got rid of Patrick Johnson? Remember, because they were trying to make moves with the roster at the bottom of the roster.
Yeah, they had to bring Nick Gates back.
Right.
And yeah, that was, and they knew they were going to lose Patrick Johnson. But I'm a little surprised they waived him, and they brought him back. and
Yeah,
he's
and
back now.
there was a time last year where we were like, we could have used Patrick Johnson. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, it all worked out because
Yeah.
everybody played well. But we, for a second there, we all wished we had him for it. But when the edge
Yeah.
rushers were getting hurt, PG got hurt.
Now, Carolina last year was picking up every corner. Now, that was 2 years ago with Eli. But so every decent corner that hit waivers, Carolina was picking up. But so, that is something. And obviously, Howie has a good feel for that. But if you're the fifth wide receiver or you're a sixth corner, you got to play special teams. In theory. Now, the Eagles have proven, well, not so much because they kept Eli for 2 years. And we'll see if that's 3. But I would think if they're going to keep him again, he's got to play at some point. So he's going to have a really strong summer.
Yeah. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Hour number 1 in the books here on Birds 365. 2 great segments talking about that top 25 list and then a little Antwaun Powell-Ryland, who woke up this morning and thought we were talking about APR, the Eagles' final pick of the draft this year. Well, we just did it. So good stuff there. Johnny Mac, great breakdown of what he could be for this team moving in. In hour number 2, we'll take plenty of chats if we have any. I do see we got 1 chat now. So anybody in hour number 2 that wants to drop a super chat, we will get to all of them. I'll make a little super chat goal maybe, and any super chat will qualify. So I'll put that up in the commercial break. JD3 checks in. He says, J-Mac, how did you feel about Cena's pipe bomb? Feel like they finally let him loose on the mic. Punk's pipe bomb, greatest promo ever. Here we go.
Oh boy. I thought it was great to answer the Cena's phenomenal when whether you believe it or not, that the thought was that when they did the heel turn, they didn't want him being the real sort of John Cena who blows everybody away, because then they'd start cheering him and they boo Cody and all this, and they're trying to protect Cody. I don't know if that's true. I kind of believe it's true, but yeah, when you let him have the mic and let him go, he's gonna deliver. And he truly is amongst it. There's a lot of great promos, dude. I mean, you go back to Roddy Piper and Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes, and so I don't think Pump's pipe bomb promo is the greatest promo ever, but it was very good. But it's tough there's so many Roddy Piper promos and Terry Funk promos specifically, if you like heels. Yeah, Ole Anderson's got maybe the greatest promo of all time. Anybody who knows Ole Anderson. The "It Will Never Be Done" promo. Look it up on
I'll watch it
on YouTube.
I'm write it in my notes.
Old school territorial wrestling, but that's when promos were probably the best because they were off the cuff and guys, they didn't have Hollywood writers. They had to do it themselves. And yeah, look up Ole.
Well, what can I ask you just in general? What do you love about like the WWE? Like, because I had some dude comment, and he's like, Johnny Mac's the most logical, rational, non-gimmicky person I've ever listened to, and I've been listening to him for 4 years. And then he's like, I'm a WWE fan, and it just completely shatters what I would expect from John McMullen. I'm like, that's kind of a good point. Like, what is it that?
Well, I don't think it is. I think for those are people who don't understand the industry. First of all, I'm a pro wrestling fan. I just brought up Ole Anderson and Terry Funk, and they're not, most of their careers were outside of WWF, WWE, WWF when it first started. But when it's the same as like in movies or entertainment. When it's done at the highest level, there's nothing better. And there's nothing better because they control it. Like when you see Cena's heel turn earlier this year,
right,
people were losing their minds. You don't have that moment in professional sports. Professional sports is you're glad because your team won. And that's tremendous loyalty and tremendous. This is like a great movie or a great television show. So people don't understand. It's very logical. Now, when you have bad pro wrestling, it's like a bad TV show or bad, it's
Yeah,
pretty shitty.
Yeah, right.
But when it clicks and you see how many people love it,
Oh,
like
it's tremendous.
you
It's one of the businesses I'm most fascinated by, John. Doesn't mean I'm the biggest fan. I've just never gotten into it in my older age, but I'm very fascinated by it.
yeah, it's so to me, it's very logical. I think it's only illogical to people who don't understand the business, which, back in the day, there was a carny aspect and they tried to fool people. And there were a bunch of, Southern goofballs who thought it was real. But for people who understand what it is, and now they don't try to, fool people. Yeah, for what it is, it's completely logical. It's the highest moments of wrestling are way bigger than anything else because they are scripted, and you can put it together perfectly if you do. Now, some people would argue the NFL is scripted, and they have argued, but it's not. And that's more about loyalty to your favorite team, whoever that might be, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like, that's tremendous for that fan base. The rest of us wanted to see Halliburton out there, but you can't script it.
Good stuff. Great takeaway there from Johnny Mac. Good stuff, everybody in the chat. I appreciate you all being here. Hit that like button. JD3, thank you for the super chat, brother. Good stuff there. We'll talk more about that. We want to talk a little AJ Brown when we get back, and plenty of things on the other side that we'll get into as well. If we get to it, I got some Nakobe Dean conversation as well here written on my sheet. So if we get to that, we'll get to it. But AJ Brown, Nakobe Dean talk coming up next, and we'll also do super chats. So anybody that makes a super chat, I'll create the goal now. Anybody that makes a super chat, we will respond and talk to you about the upcoming season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Or if you're like JD3 and you want to ask Johnny Mac about some wrestling, we'll take those super chats as well. So we appreciate all of you guys. Hit that like button for us. I'm trying to get to 150 likes per show. So please do that for me. Comment down below. Comment in the live chat. We love hearing from all of you guys. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.